Welcome to the Institute of Management Consultants, Northwest Oregon and Washington, IMCnow. We have two great speakers. Matt Katzer is the CEO of K-Minded, a Microsoft Gold partner and author of Securing Office 365 and co-author of the best-selling cybersecurity books Under Attack and Easy Prey. And I am reading Under Attack, and it's fascinating. Now, Matt's focus on cybersecurity started while working in the security division of Intel Corporation. He holds a Bachelor of Science of Electrical Engineering from the University of Michigan and an executive MBA from the University of Oregon. Matt's greatest satisfaction comes from helping clients become competitive in a technology-driven world. In today's Innovation Now section, we'll discuss simple steps you and your clients can take to protect against cyber attacks and what happens if you ignore cybersecurity. Matt, take it away.
You know, it doesn't matter how many times you do this, you can never find the unmute button. So it's, hey, John, thank you very much for that warm introduction and welcome everyone. And I really this is a great honor to speak to all of you. And, you know, it's really interesting as how things have changed. This picture on the screen that I'm using as a backdrop is actually from the in Redmond, Washington at Microsoft, the main campus. That's their main cybersecurity site. And so, and you think about it in terms of what's going on in the world and everything else. And if you look at like Microsoft itself, with the exception of the DoD, they are the most attacked organization in the world. And in terms of, and cyber. So we think there's a lot of things that's going on in cybersecurity. So what I thought we'd do is just kind of give you some simple tricks. I have a few slides and just kind of give you a frame what the types of things we do today. But really there's some simple things you can do that we tell all our clients that, you know, how to actually be safe and how to take care of yourself. But, you know, with a little bit more to get an idea, kind of give you a flavor of how interesting the world has changed in the past world. You know, so like, you know, you think of IT services and everything else, you know, in terms of capabilities, the way we actually train our folks now, we actually use these simulation, which is almost like war game simulation tools. That's how we train our engineers, and that's how we train our cyber engineers. And that's how we develop capabilities and everything else to basically figure out how to actually defend clients and protect ourselves. And it's kind of really because when you look at businesses today, and you do this with your clients as well, we're all stewards for our clients, and we have responsibilities to them, how we do things and how we actually the advice that we offer. And it's really super important because, you know, and we really believe in our culture of our company, for instance, is it's really our core philosophy is to help businesses, and we handle the smallest business we have is like 1 or 2 users, and the largest business we have is about 2,000 to 3,000. But across everyone, it's all about the same thing because everybody's worried about how to actually protect information. But more important, how do you protect the information of the clients that you have, and how do you become good stewards for that? Because everybody is a target in this new world. And that's how everything's changed. So to give you an idea of what has happened in the past week, for instance, is that, you know, you get this little thing, the big one that happened is this whole passwords. When you think about passwords, it's like, oh, I got a special password or things, you know, 8 billion of them have been released on the dark web. The dark web is the area where the bad actors go buy things, and they buy passwords. So you can actually download, in this case, it's all free. You can actually download all this stuff and use them to break into systems. But these are the type of things. It's like construction companies are targeted with the public data breaches and exploit. This is just a new, like all the construction companies have been hit in the US. It's just like there's a massive campaign. You know, extortion letters for publicly traded companies demanding we're going to actually do what we did to the meatpacking guys unless you pay us $1 million Bitcoins. So anyone who's traded, these are letters that went out this past week. you have Chrome, sometimes you don't patch your systems and stuff like that. Well, you have the same thing. The Chrome browser patch is that we have this thing called remote execution drive-by. In the computerized, what that means is that when you think of like drive-by shootings or something like that, or racing down the street, it's the same thing with your browser. You go browse to a website, you go to a website, that's a drive-by, you can actually get infected in your system. So you have to keep things on top and have to take care of it. And, and there's basically finding out when a password's actually stolen from someone that's through a breach or clicked on those phishing emails. It's within minutes, it's distributed worldwide. And these are the type of things that are basically going on. Like you had the past couple of days, you probably all had your smartphones has these massive updates over the past weekend. And yeah, it doesn't matter we run Apple, doesn't matter we run iOS, everybody's patching everything as fast as possible. And then you also have with what's goes on, you remember when the embassy was shut down in Texas, the Chinese embassy? That was part of this, there's another vaccine stealing all the vaccine technology, because everything here, it's all about money. And that's what it is. And this stuff is really vicious and going on constantly as you see different activities that you want to try to have. So, but questions that we're always asked, so this is kind of like, a little fear mongering. It's purpose and solely purpose, but a lot of things we want to do, there's really a couple 4 steps that if you really look at what you want to try to do to kind of take care of things, it really is 4 simple steps. Now, this is a big one. You have to use multi-factor authentication. That means you have to use you have your cell phone, you go in your email account, your cell phone comes up, you punch a code to let yourself into your account. 99% of the breaches are because people didn't do this. So we come through, and it's really kind of funny. It's like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm going to be distracted or whatever. Well, if you're a good steward for information, that's the whole thing you have to think about, is that you are the steward for your client information. As you look up for your family, you have your family contacts and information too. You're the steward for that. You have to basically manage those things. We all have responsibilities. And this is like number 1, you do this one thing and you protect yourself 99% of the time. The other piece you have is passwords are getting very complex. 8.3 billion passwords. How many passwords do you find when you have, like, my dog has spots or something, or my dog's name is Jan or whatever, or my birth date, or go pick the combination. You're going to have to use a keeper. We use like Keeper Security, for instance. That's the one that we tend to standardize on. And, I use it in my personal life. I use it in my work life. And if you don't, and the other thing people says is that, well, geez, I don't want to spend the $5 or $10 on this. Then they use a free one. They'll have been breached. If it's free on the password keepers, guess what? They've been breached and the keys are in there. There's a lot of people, sometimes we come across companies when we actually onboard them to a security program, they're using a free password keeper, and like all the passwords already been breached, and the bad actors have full access to everything. But, so that's the second thing to do. Use a password keeper, and if you're going old school, yeah, go write it down in your password book. And really, as a you just kind of figure out a system that works for you. In terms of password rules, the biggest one that people run into is that, we're all creatures of habit. We're all lazy, even myself. We try to take the simplest way to do things. You want to do little things like, if you go to a bank, let's say you have a Bank of America, or if you have a Chase Bank account, or if you go to a Wells Fargo, the password you use for those bank accounts must be unique for that bank. Don't overuse it elsewhere. Don't use it multiple places. And the other thing is that people try to figure out what is the best way to password. And we're always asked, what is a good password to use? Well, in my office, I happen to have a little thing of carrying my pencils and everything else. So what I actually do is that basically my password in this case is come through and say, I have on the left-hand side, my desk is my scissors and my black pencil bin. That's the password. So you start looking at things that you're doing, and those are probably the best password because it's long, it's complex, it's unique. And you want to look at things to basically make sure that you can actually, that's uniquely to you. And the other aspect you start looking for, that people get in trouble is when they say they have a work account and they have a personal account. And then what they do is you use their work password and they go to a website and they use the same password on the website. And guess what? That website gets breached or hacked. That 8.3 billion passwords are part of people that have work accounts. That's conducting their business, that they actually use that password and they breach it for the business. And then those are really those simple things that you can do to really kind of help yourself. And then if you're doing like managing security, in the old days, you used to have like the IT folks would use security and they do, manage your systems, manage security. Those days are gone. It's basically IT folks are good for support and reactive type things. Security suppliers, such as like CAMN, they're much more, we're proactive. We're always looking for things, how to defend, how to actually handle it. And it's a maturity process that you go through. But those are really the 3 rules you want to follow. And if you do those, you keep yourself out of trouble. And if you actually go through and look in terms of, like we have locks access to the Microsoft information, there's hundreds of millions of users. And it really comes down to, out of those 100 million users on 365, you only have maybe a couple million that actually use multi-factor authentication. And guess what happens to the other folks? They get breached because those things happen and you got to be stewards, and that's the key thing. So this is all fine and dandy, but what does that really mean to you? Well, a little story, what happened is that there was like a defense contractor, and they hired a local excavation firm. And what they did is that they needed to get some information. The defense contractor gave it, and the local excavation firm was breached. That cost, and you look at it, how does that really, well, that's just noise and everything else. But here's what happened, the breach is. The top picture is the J-31, which is the Chinese version of the F-35B. The bottom one is the Lockheed, and that's the McDonnell Lockheed F-35. So you're looking at basically close to almost $1 trillion that the Chinese picked up for free. That's the type of stuff that's happened. We all have responsibilities. We all have to be stewards for information. And that's the key. And it doesn't matter what you are, because people are looking, it doesn't matter if you're a bad actor or whatever. People are basically, there's businesses. We had one business that we've known that they discovered that was operating out in the, Ukraine area. And, they had like, we use Vern Harnish for Rockefeller Habits folks and everything else. They do the same thing and everything else, and everybody's thought they were doing a super job. In the back end, there's a core of 5 or 6 people with some of the 80-person firm, roughly about a $50 million business they generated, and 5 people were basically the bad actors. And they're stealing information and doing a lot of spam, and legitimized. Sometimes people don't even know you're working for some of these things. But you have to be really stewards. You got to be stewards about what's going on, and that's super important. So a little bit about us quickly is basically we do a lot of things in Microsoft licensing. We do a lot of stuff in compliance management. And the key thing with now today, when you actually think about security and you think about different things that goes on, is you got to have this mode of, you got to be continuous security improvement. You got to constantly improve. Just like we talk in business where you talk about efficiencies and looking at processes, and we want to get the SOPs in place, develop the processes necessary to basically move the business forward. Security is the same. And you have to basically embrace those things in terms of yourself. And that's all I really wanted to kind of give you, these ideas and those 3 simple rules. Use multi-factor authentication, for instance. Go basically use a password keeper if you don't have one, and make your passwords unique. Do those 3 simple steps, And you're going to do a lot, not only for yourself, but for your clients that you're basically stewards for their data, but also for your family. You have to take these things and you basically, this is how you basically survive in this new cyber world. So with that, I was just having you kind of a brief overview, and I was going to pass it over to John and see what questions that you guys have.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. That was a great talk.